Hello everyone, welcome to AWS Tutorials. In AWS Tutorials, we provide workshops and exercises to learn about AWS services. These workshops and exercises are published to our website aws-dojo.com. Today, we are going to talk about how you can use custom text or document classification into Amazon Comprehend service. And we will do a very interesting hands-on lab where you will build a machine learning model which can be used to predict whether a news title is real or fake. So let's get started. To know about Amazon Comprehend a bit, it is AI ML service from AWS, which uses natural language processing NLP to classify any text or the document. And the type of classification which you can do is you can identify the language of the text or the document, you can identify the key phrases, you can identify whether the document or text is what is the sentiment of that document or text, like it is net neutral or it is positive or negative. And similarly, you can also identify entities, topics, or syntax in your text and the documents. And this service you can make call like an API, and then you can pass your text or document as one of the parameters to this API, and then this Comprehend API can come back with classification information about the document or the text. In addition to this out-of-box API, Amazon Comprehend also support custom text classification, which could be a very interesting one if you want to do any specific classification of the text or the document. So few examples I will like to give here is, for instance, if you want to predict whether email content is spam or no spam, if you want to automatically tag your customer messages as complaint, request, or praise, or if you want to categorize your news articles as it is focusing more on food or sports or the politics or anything else. And of course, you can also use, there could be a scenario where you want to use this kind of custom text classification to predict whether one of the tweets or the news or the reviews is real or fake. So if you want to have this kind of custom text or document classification, then you can use Amazon Comprehend service for such classification. And this is what we are going to focus today in the tutorial. So let's see how custom text classification works. Basically, it is a three-step process. The first step is you need to prepare your training data, because in order to create a machine learning model, the model is trained on training data. So you need to have a training data in place. Then you train your model, and in this case we call it a classifier model. You train your classifier model using this training data, and finally you simply deploy this model and use it. Use this model to do your custom text classification. So that's how the three steps works. It's pretty straightforward, but very interesting and powerful service. So let me walk you through each of these three steps to help you understand how it works. To start with, you need to start with preparing your training data. And there's few things you need to do in order to prepare your training data. And this training data is used by Comprehend for training your custom classifier model. So first thing you need to understand is training data is supported in two formats. It can have two formats. The first one is pretty simple. You can have a CSV file where you can say that you will have this kind of two-column CSV file where the first column is the classification information. So for instance, this class could be, if you talk about news title being fake or real, then it could be like class like real or fake, and then the next column is the text or the document you know which is real or fake. Yeah, so it could be 2-column format like that, or you can also use another service of AWS which is called SageMaker Ground Truth, where it is used for labeling your data, and output of this SageMaker Ground Truth can also be used, which is more of an augmented, I will say augmented data file or manifest file. This can be used to this can also be used as a training data. And in this case, you can see here is your training data. Then here is the classification, whether it's a spam or non-spam, and then it has lot more information. For instance, what is the confidence label that this is a spam. So now it's like it's 98% confident that this is a spam. So this, you can see, it has got more, this data is more mature. It has got more label information. So even this data can be used, but for that you have to use SageMaker Ground Truth. So I'm not going to go too deep over here, because then I have to talk about SageMaker Ground Truth in greater detail, probably in some other session. But keep this in mind that your training data can have two formats. One is a simple CSV file, and other could be your augmented manifest file. And today I'm going to, I know that most of our audience probably will not be aware of SageMaker Ground Truth, so I will try to keep my focus more on the CSV file today. Okay. So moving forward, so you understand the format part. Now your data can have two modes, okay, and this is very interesting one, okay. So for instance, you can have a multi-class mode. So for instance, you are saying here that there are certain document text. Are they comedy? Are they drama? Or are they something else? Or take example of, again, news title. So they will have multiple news titles here, and then it is fake, it is real, it is fake or real, and that kind of classification. So it's you can see there are multiple classes here, multiple classification, but each document has only one class. Like if it is comedy, then it's comedy. If it's drama, then it's drama. If it is real, then real. It's a fake, then fake. There's no mixing here. So that's called multi-class mode. So there are multiple classes, but each document has only one class, okay? Or each text has only one class. Now there's something called multi-label mode, where you can have more than one class with a text document. So for example, this one is comedy, this one is drama, but this one is comedy and drama both. So you can have this kind of document as well. So when you're trying to build your model, actually you have to choose between one of these two modes, whether you're going for a multi-class mode where your document, you have multiple classes, but a document is only of one class type, or text is only one class type, or you go for multi-label mode where again you have multiple classes, but your document text could be more than one class, okay? So you select the mode. And after that, and these are two major decisions you take, yeah? So your document has to be either in the CSV format or in the ground truth based augmented format. It has to be either multi-class or multi-label, and then you have to structure your document like that, and then you're good to go. Now, few things to know, okay? Just to make sure that you are building a good model which can do an accurate prediction about text classification. First thing, for each class, it is very important that you provide at least minimum 10 documents or text. So at least 10 different documents or text for each class in your training data will be is minimum required. But if you want to improve your accuracy of the training, see, when you're trying to train your model, generally more the data, more mature or accurate is your model. So if you want to enhance accuracy of your training, then you should have for each class at least 50 documents or text or more, yeah? So more than 50 documents per class is something which is recommended to have better accuracy. But if you have at least 10, you're good to go. Your total size of the training document must be less than 5 GB. So the upper limit of your training document is, or training data is 5 GB, not more than that. And this training data is stored into S3 bucket. So S3 bucket becomes the source or the place where you put your training data, and then the data is trained from there. So this is what you do to prepare your training data. Once you have prepared your training, and guys, again, we are going to have a fully elaborated hands-on lab. So if you want to get experience about how it works and get your hands dirty, just wait for the lab part to come, and then you will get that experience. So once your data is ready, then you train your model, or train your machine learning model. In this case, we call it classifier model, and it has got multiple steps involved. Primary step is training data preparation, but after that, it's pretty straightforward and quick configuration. So you start from here and end here. So you start with you give a good classifier name. Then you select your training data mode, and again, it could be either multi-class or multi-label. And of course, your data should be in the format of multi-class or multi-label, depending on what mode you are selecting. Then you select your training data format, which could be a CSV or augmented data format from ground truth. Again, depending on whether you're selecting the CSV or augmented, your data format, your training data format should match to that selection. Then you point to the location where you have stored your training data. Like I mentioned earlier, training data should be in S3 bucket. Then you give an create an IAM role for Comprehend. So basically, Comprehend is going to access data from S3. It will store the output into the S3. So for that, it needs permission to authorizations to talk to other AWS services like S3. And we assign IAM role for that purpose. So you can, in fact, it allows you to create a new role altogether from the screen. You can select that choice. And finally, you start your training. And the training starts, and after some time, when your training is completed, your model is ready. And this model then can be used to classify any text or the documents. So these are the steps involved in order to train your model. So once your model is trained, then you want to use your model. And of course, you want to use your model to classify a document. There are two ways you can do that. You can go for a batch or a synchronous classification job, where you are running you're kind of running a classification job to classify a large volume of documents or text. Or you can also go for a real-time classification, where you kind of like make an API call and you classify your document. So let's go and let's learn about each of these methods in greater detail. So talking about first, which is batch or asynchronous classification. This method is used when you want to, like you have a large volume of data, large volume of documents, and you want to classify. Then you might want to create a job which does in a batch mode or synchronous mode, does the classification of your documents, takes its own time to finish it, and then you come back later and see the result of your classification, right? You can, and this method is used for that kind of large scale classification of your documents or text. Now, there are two ways you can provide data for such thing. Either you can provide, for instance, one document per file. So generally, if your text or the document is large, like you're trying to classify a news article or document like that, then in that case, you might want to have one file per document. So your document itself will be, the file itself will be classified in that case, right? Or if your text or document is small, for instance, news title, tweets, or reviews, in that case, you can have a single document, and then you can have one line per document. You can do that as well. Okay, so there are two choices: one document per file, or one document per line. Okay. Now, all documents must be in UTF-8 format, and these documents are also kept into your S3 bucket. So this is how you prepare data which you want to classify in a batch or asynchronous method. Now, in order to do the classification, you have to run a job, right? And how do you run the job? So to run the job, actually, you use Comprehend API. Either you can use a language like Python to use this API, or you can also use AWS CLI for these APIs. Both methods you can use. So first you call this start document classification job, which primarily takes 3 parameters. One is tell me the place where the documents are, tell me the S3 location where these documents are placed, whether it's one document per file. In that case, you will have multiple files, or you will have one document per line. In that case, you will have a single file. So you select location where your documents to be classified are stored. Then you also provide a location where the output of the classification is done. So now, since it is a batch process, that means you will run and probably go for a coffee, and when you come back, your results will be ready, and your results will be ready in this S3 bucket location. And then you also provide the name of the classifier model which to use. So the model which you just created in the earlier step, that model or the train in the earlier step, that model you use mention over here. And then you run the job. So it will start the job, and it's a batch process. It is going to take a long time. And if you want to track the status of the job, you can always use this describe document classification job method to monitor the progress of the job. And results are ready when the status comes back as completed. So this is one way you can use the model for classifying your document or text. The other method is you can use a real-time classification. That is like an API call that I give a text and I get a response back in terms of classification. So this is generally, as I mentioned, it's API-based classification. It's a real-time. You get a response then and there only. In order to do so, what you have to do, you have to do additional construct. So in this case, you have to deploy an endpoint. And endpoint is like, you can say, in a very simple term, you can say it is like you have deployed your model like an API. Okay, so you get an endpoint, you deploy your model in API so that you can make a call to it like an API, and that you do by using the endpoint. When you deploy your endpoint, actually you have to mention something called inference unit. This is like what capacity you are deploying with the endpoint in terms of in order to handle the throughput. Okay, so for instance, if you talk about say one inference unit, that means the throughput is 2 characters per second for up to 2 documents per second. Yeah, so this is the throughput 1 unit provides. So you can control how many inference unit you want to deploy with endpoint, but that will give you a throughput capacity to endpoint in order to handle the amount of data to be classified. And one endpoint can go maximum 10 inference. And of course, if one endpoint is not enough, I think you can deploy more than one endpoint as well, if you want to do some kind of parallel classification in order to enhance your throughput capacity. Okay, and then once your endpoint is deployed, actually you can call this classify document method where you can simply pass the endpoint ARN and text to be classified like an API call, and then it will immediately give you back the classification of your text. Yeah, so I just said it's a real-time classification, like an API call. You can make a call and get a response back. So just to show you an example of it, and this is what we are going to use in our hands-on lab as well. You just deploy an endpoint, and you can see that the endpoint has been deployed. This is the ARN of the endpoint, and this is the one inference unit we have just associated with that. And then either from CLI or from from Python-like code, you can actually call this classified document method, passing the text to be classified, like this is a text to be classified, and then text to be classified, and then this is the endpoint errand, and it can come back with a result saying that, hey, this is, for instance, 48% real, 51% fake. So quite a mixed result in this particular case in terms of confidence of prediction, right? So you can make API call like this. So having understood how the model can be used, now let's talk about what we are going to build today. So what we are going to build today is where I have got some sample data from Kaggle, and I'm going to use that data to train a model. In fact, you are going to do that in the workshop. So you are going to use that sample data to train a model, and this model will be used to actually predict whether the news title is fake or real. So first we'll keep our data inside S3 bucket, then we'll use comprehend to build a custom classifier model, then we'll deploy that custom classifier model using an endpoint, and then we will use a Python based code into Jupyter Notebook to call this endpoint and do a real-time classification of a text. Okay, that's what we are going to build today. So in order to do this exercise, we have got a workshop, and this workshop is uploaded to our website aws-dojo.com. Now I'm going to walk you through the steps of this workshop, and then post that you can run this workshop by your own and learn about using custom classification in Comprehend. So let's move on to the workshop without wasting any more time. So here is the workshop uploaded to our website, aws-dojo.com. Okay, so we simply click on Start the Workshop. And these are the steps you need to perform to complete the workshop. As I told you, it's pretty straightforward and simple workshop, so just 6 steps. First step is prerequisite, which talks about you need to have an AWS account in order to complete this workshop. And if you don't have AWS account, you might want to use this link to create the account. So once that is done, then you prepare your data. So what I have done is that from the Kaggle website, I have got some data which you can download from the link over here. Actually, and this data is a CSV file which has got like two fields. One is the first column, which is the class, which is either real or the text. Real or the fake, and the next one is a news title, which is classified as either real or the fake. Yeah. So this is what we have got as the sample data. You might want to download this data and see the data for yourself. Now what we do is that we log into AWS console, we go to the Ireland region, and we are creating an S3 bucket. And in this S3 bucket, we simply upload this news test.csv data, which you just downloaded from the link over here. Okay, so you can see that your data is uploaded. So this is an example of a multi-class data, and we are going to use this data to train the model. So let's start training the model. So in order to train the model, we have to go to Amazon Comprehend and click on Custom Classification. And then we click on, we want to train a model. It will ask information. Okay, what is the name of the classifier? And you mention that. The language is English. Then in this case, my data is actually a multi-class mode data. That means I have got multiple news titles, but these news titles are either real or fake, not mix. Okay, so it is a multi-class mode, so I select that mode. And then for the data format, I'm using a CSV file format over here, because that's what you have downloaded from the link. Then you provide the location where your data is, and you remember we uploaded the data to this particular bucket over here. Then you say, okay, fine, for the IAM, why don't you go and create an IAM role for me so that it has all the required permissions to call the S3 bucket. And then we keep rest of the things to the default and simply click on the train the classifier. See, pretty straightforward, right? So you click on the train classifier, and training of the model will start, and wait till the training, the status of the model changes to trained. Okay, so it will take some time. In my case, it took almost, you can see here, more than more than, I think, around 40 minutes, if I can say. Yeah, probably around 40 minutes, 35 to 40 minutes. So it will take some time, and then it will simply train your model. Now your model has been trained. Now we want to, in this example, make a real-time classification of the text. So for that purpose, we will create an endpoint. So what we do, once your model is trained, you simply go to the section which says create an endpoint. It will ask what is the name of the endpoint. You provide the name of the endpoint and how many inference unit you want to deploy. So what kind of throughput you are expecting. Since it is a lab and we are not expecting workload, so we simply go for minimum as 1. And then we simply create the endpoint and wait till the status of the endpoint creation turn to ready. Once the endpoint is ready, you make note of the ARN of the endpoint because you need it in order to make call to the endpoint. Okay, fair enough. So my model and the endpoint is ready. Now we are going to configure a SageMaker notebook so that we can write a Python code in the SageMaker notebook in order to call this endpoint to classify the document. So we click on the configure SageMaker notebook. First we'll create a role which will give SageMaker notebook access to call comprehend API. So we go to the IAM management console, we click on the roles, want to create a new role, you go to the permissions, select the SageMaker as a service, and then then we simply click on the next, go to tags, go to review, and finally we provide this a nice name called Dojo SageMaker role, and then we create the role. And once a role has been created, actually what you do, since this role will not have access to comprehend, and we need to give it access to the comprehend. We need to give it access to the comprehend. What we'll do is simply remove this policy from the role and attach power user access. Again, we could have been more specific here, but yeah, being lazy, we simply provide this power user access and get away with this. So our role is ready. Then we go to the SageMaker notebook and say, I want to create a notebook instance. You create a notebook instance. You give this notebook instance a nice name, Dojo notebook, and then you simply select the role you created for the SageMaker notebook, and then you launch the notebook instance. You wait till the status of the notebook instance turns to in service. Now our notebook instance is run. Now we are good to go and write a Python-based client which can make a call to the endpoint to do the classification of the text or the document. So next step is to create the client. In order to create the client, we are launching a Jupyter Notebook IDE. For that, you click on this Open Jupyter link. It will open a Jupyter Notebook IDE, and then you create a new file using Conda Python 3 as a kernel, and then you simply your notebook is ready. Now, first, once your notebook is ready, you start making calls. So the first thing you will do is that you will import Boto module, and then you will create a client for comprehend, and then you also provide the endpoint for the endpoint ARN. So remember, when you created the endpoint, you made note of the endpoint URL, so ARN. So that ARN you have to provide over here, and that will initiate a client for comprehend. And the next step is that we are simply going to call this classify document method, passing this ARN and the text, and whatever classifications comes back, we are printing it. Now, there are a few examples I have taken from the same Kaggle website, which I'm using for the test purpose. So I put the first one over here, and I run the code, and I get a response back saying that, hey, as per the model deployed, looks like this is 51% fake and 48% real. Really, the model is confused, and it's giving me a mixed result. So we are not very sure whether it's a fake and real. Even model is not sure about it's a fake or real. But if we take another example, for instance, this one over here, and then we run again, and you see that in this case the model is pretty confident with 73% confidentiality that it is a fake, and 26% confidentiality that it is a real. So it looks like this text is most probably a fake test. Similarly, you can use some other titles. An example, again, I mean, in few cases I get like 100%, close to 99 or 98% real or fake, and even 100% in some cases. So that's pretty much where the workshop finishes. Then you go to the next step where you clean up the resources so that you don't incur any cost post the workshop. So that was all for today, guys. Hope you liked the video, and if you like, please click on the like button. Please subscribe to my channel. There are many other similar workshops and exercises which you can use to learn about AWS services. So please do visit my website and explore those exercises and the workshop. We always look forward to your feedback for the new content, for the improving the mistakes, or I like to answer questions from the people. So if you have any questions, any feedback, any request for new content, either you can provide us in the comment section of the YouTube channel, or you can click on the contact us tab here and can provide feedback there as well. So we look forward to your feedback. Okay, and I promise to come back again in couple of days time to with another such video tutorial. In the meantime, stay safe and have a nice day. Bye bye.